There's a common turn of phrase that has been thrown around for centuries. Pain is beauty. Now I'd like to alter this phrase. Money is beauty is a more accurate phrase. I mean, money and pain are kind of synonymous with each other since you need to work in order to get money, and work is pain. With this knowledge being had, for the past few years there has been a rise in another phrase. You're not ugly, just poor. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, but since I'm here to explain, I guess I should further elaborate, right? In sum, if you're ugly, there's a high probability that you aren't genetically inbred, although you might want to look into that. The reality is that you're probably just poor. Maybe you're not in poverty in the direct, extreme, stereotypical sense, but you don't have the disposable income to spend on an intense beauty regimen, or the time to spend working out and meal prepping to an absolute T. I do that, but that's just because I have undiagnosed OCD. Of course, people can be naturally beautiful. I need to clarify that before we get any further into the video. But just because you're a man, for example, who comes out of the womb 6'2" and with genetics of a Greek god, that doesn't mean that you're gonna look like that for the rest of time. A shit ton of factors tie into whether or not you're seen as attractive. Your skin, your diet, your exercise, stress levels, clothing choices, access to healthcare, and so much more. Natural beauty does not truly exist because beauty requires maintenance, which requires money. Capitalism, baby. That's like my catchphrase now. I'm thinking of getting some shirts with that printed on them and have like some 3-year-olds in a factory make them for me, to be honest. I think that'd be kind of lucrative, I think. In fact, according to World Bank statistics, half of humanity lives on $2.50 or less a day. Today we will be getting into a little bit of the history behind this concept, how beauty standards have evolved, and why being beautiful is a privilege that is most dependent on your wealth above all things.
I wasn't born pretty, but I was born stupid rich. Here's what I do to pay for my looks.
I think it's amazing and I think it's great for them. People hate on it because they want to do it. And the people who hate on the most, the people who are secretly doing it or pissed off that they can't afford it.
Because we live in a capitalist society, the goalpost for beauty will keep getting pushed further and further back. It'll keep being more and more inaccessible. Things like getting your nails done in a salon used to be a luxury. Now it's almost an expectation.
Y'all know what time it is.
We aren't born with these insecurities. We are told to be insecure about certain things. We are conditioned to feel ashamed or embarrassed about certain parts of ourselves.
37.9 million. That's the number of Americans currently living in poverty.
While for the past few years an ass big enough to pour a bottle of champagne on it has been seen as the epitome of beauty, it seems we're entering a new era where looking like you haven't eaten in a few months is in. Commonly referred to as heroin chic, it is a style popularized in early 1990s fashion and characterized by pale skin, dark circles underneath the eyes, emaciated features, androgyny, and stringy hair. All traits associated with abuse of heroin or other drugs. My personal choice is cocaine. I don't know about all you, but honestly, if you want to see heroin chic, all you'll have to do is walk down a busy street in PA, but I digress. The evolution of beauty standards is constant, much like the de-evolution of humans back into goldfish. Beauty standard is just a term used to describe aestheticizing the human body into different forms based on whatever some guy picks to be popular on that particular day of the week. That one. That one, sir? Are you sure? Do not undermine my authority. That is the next it girl. Okay, all right. We'll get right to it. Hello, ladies. Did you know that antennas are now hot and popping? That's right, and for a limited time only, Dr. Miami will be offering a 50% off discount on all antenna grafting surgeries for the ladies only. This offer will only last for a limited time, so book your appointment as soon as possible before slots run out. Or else you'll be ugly. Hence why Kim K has allegedly reduced her BBL, along with Donald Trump, of course. Skinny is in now, but it wasn't always like this. Ellen Atlanta writes for Day's Beauty, saying, "Beauty and wealth have always been bedfellows. Throughout history, the beauty standard of any given period has served the ideological interest of the ruling class. During the Renaissance, plump, pale pale skin was a prized signifier of high social status, while sun-darkened skin became synonymous with lower classes laboring outside. Today, however, that same tan complexion is desirable, coming as it is in the West to indicate leisure time, holidaying abroad in the luxury of disposable income. Another example of how beauty standards have evolved throughout time are society's ideas around being fat. A large majority of the statues found in the BC era, for example, depicted fat women's bodies as being beautiful, such as the Venus of Willendorf. This depiction of women's bodies translated through to ancient Greece, with statues of Greek goddesses even showcasing their fat rolls on their stomachs. Although fat women, as considered by today's body standards, were not technically desirable in the 40s and 50s, after the Great Depression, women with larger behinds and breasts were generally seen as more attractive, since a lot of people unintentionally adorned the starved look during the Great Depression. In a column written by Stephen E. Nash for Sapiens, he brings up Kate Moss's famous quote at the beginning of the article. "Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels." I don't know about that. Pizza's pretty good, right, ladies? Obviously, this phrase should have never passed through the thought process of a person with cognitive thoughts and then have been exalted through their lips, but it did on that day. From an evolutionary perspective, however, Moss's statement is ludicrous, if not preposterous. In 2022, Allure asked Kim Kardashian if she felt responsible, even guilty, for setting an unrealistic, unattainable beauty standard. She replied, "If I'm doing it, it's attainable. That's what I'm here to prove wrong, Kimberly." As I've alluded to in the way that women's beauty standards have changed throughout history, fat was not always considered to be a bad thing. In fact, I didn't just say that. In fact, being fat was actually once considered a sign of wealth. Food was not an easy commodity for millions of people back in the olden days. It still isn't, but I'll get into that in a second. If you were fat in 1700s England, chances are you were rich and had access to excess, leading you to become your most gatekeepy, girl-bossy, and gluttonous self. The peasants were skinny because they did not have stable access to food, or if they did, it was not high in calories or nutrition. This sentiment is still somewhat true when it comes to poorer countries in the world or any place where extreme famine or poverty is prevalent among a majority of the population. Although I do want to clarify that when I say poor countries, the reality is that a few people are hoarding that country's wealth while the majority of citizens are suffering in poverty, leading it to be more of an issue with the leadership rather than the people of that nation. To add on to that, terms like developing countries and third world can lead to stigmatizing the people who live there. Dr. Abrar Karan said in a 2021 interview with NPR, "There is no third world. There were the oppressed and the oppressors." I dislike the term developing world because it assumes a hierarchy between countries, is what Jose Casey, a South African social psychologist in the University of Cape Town, told me in an email exchange when I first looked into this issue a few years back. It paints a picture of Western societies as ideal, but there are many social problems in those societies as well. It also perpetuates stereotypes about people who come from so-called developing worlds as backward, lazy, ignorant, and irresponsible. I felt that it was important to clarify on that, but back to the topic of people starving. In Uganda, one of the poorest nations where nearly half the people eat fewer calories than they need each day, excess fat is often a sign of wealth and can help get a bank loan, according to a forthcoming article in the American Economic Review. While this is still somewhat true in extreme cases, in a lot of developing countries that are not facing widespread famine, upon adopting different diets with the access to cheaper and higher processed food, as well as the need for less physical activity, obesity actually becomes a big problem. Africa is facing a growing problem of obesity and overweight, and the trends are rising. Matshidiso Moeti, the World Health Organization's regional director for Africa, said last year in a statement, "If unchecked, millions of people, including children, risk living shorter lives under the burden of poor health." An example of why developing countries may have higher rates of obesity is that the price gap between healthy foods, expensive, and unhealthy foods, inexpensive, is greater in developing countries than in rich developed countries. But again, like the people I quoted earlier, this is not always true, since America has about a 40% obesity rate and we are a rich, developed country, so it's not always dependent on how poor or rich your country is, right? Or developed. Underdeveloped. Cross-cultural research among 11 Western and non-Western traditional societies suggests there has been a rapid and recent globalization of fat stigma. Until at least the 1990s, several of these societies, including American Samoa, Puerto Rico, and Tanzania, were considered fat positive, meaning they demonstrated a preference for plump bodies. But in the last 2 decades, with increasing globalization, these same countries have begun to stigmatize fat. Research in Fiji and elsewhere suggests it occurred with the introduction of television and global media and the resulting exposure to largely Western culture, mores, and entertainment. As we can see in some instances with a bit of historical examples, fat was once desired, and if not desired, certainly way less stigmatized than it is now. In America, as an example, kill me, fat is largely considered socially unacceptable. While at one point in time we had to hunt and perhaps pillage and plunder, being fat at that time was seen as a sign of prosperity, Now, it only signifies the stigma associated with it. McDonald's eater, lazy, and poor. If not poor, then inept, because how dare you be fat? Now, we're not gonna focus on the mental aspect, I guess, of it too much now. Let's just focus on the wealth aspect of being fat. While I joked about being naturally sexy at the beginning of the video, which, let's be clear, I am, the truth is that I have a lot of time to dedicate to meal prepping and working out, along with enough money to at least give me some variety of options when I go to the grocery store. I eat quite a healthy diet. With food prices being consistently high the past couple of years, this inequality has only been heightened. While in some instances fresh food may be cheaper, I mean, why was the pre-made sandwich I bought at Walmart Deli a couple months ago $5? I don't know. Poorer people still have less access to time, meaning less time to make full, healthy, well-balanced meals. On top of this, foods with a higher nutritional content usually cost more than white pasta, for example, which has a very high caloric content and very few nutritional qualities. I mean, have you seen the price of salmon? I cry every time. Excuse me, sir?
Nobody talking to me!
Not to mention that working out is time consuming, and many low-income people do not have the time, access, or just basic energy to work out enough to make a difference on their body. A lot of the gym rats you see, who, by the way, do that for a living, are spending almost their entire days in order to look like that, and yet average people are just expected to do that. There are tons of scholarly articles that you can read about how obesity ties into being poor. Of course, obesity is not that simple, but wealth is a large part of it. On top of all of this, fat is defined differently for everyone. We all saw the tabloids calling celebrities who were smaller than the average person, even at that time, fat whales. The label fat can also vary widely based on race, ethnicity, culture, and so many other factors. This is why a fat person's health should be between them and their doctor, if they are rich enough to have one, of course. Healthcare is a privilege.
Be grateful.
We all know that in Western society particularly, being thin in the case of women and lean in the case of men is considered more attractive than being fat. We also know that fat people are generally treated worse than thin people and can even face harassment for their weight, and on top of this, even medical discrimination. It is no secret that fat is considered ugly, and if you don't have access to quality medical care, time, and money, and are unfortunately fat, then you are not beautiful. A Harvard study drawing on data from the implicit association test, which asked people to sort words and images into good and bad categories, found that implicit bias against fat people actually grew from 2007 to 2016, with 81% of people exhibiting it by the end of the study. Every other implicit bias in the study regarding race, gender, sexual orientation, age, and disability waned during that period. The difference between now and 100 years ago, however, is this. Social media and access to every possible thing that can make us feel worse about ourselves. Back in the day, if you were a poor peasant, these beautiful, voluptuous women were only figments of your imagination, for you didn't see them all the time, so you may not have a worse relationship with your body because of it. A survey of 2,733 sexual minority men, queer men, found a pattern that associates between social media use and body dissatisfaction, eating disorder symptoms, thoughts about using anabolic steroids. In a 2023 study published in Computers and Human Behavior, the Appear Lab and their Australian colleagues followed large samples of adolescents from schools in Melbourne, Australia over the course of a year. They analyzed trends in how social media changed the body image perception of different groups of users. Membership to the higher social media subgroups were linked to greater body dissatisfaction, dietary restraint, and muscle building behaviors. In a New York Times article published last year, they interviewed teenagers about how social media affects their body image. Social media greatly affects my body image. There are beautiful people online, and with TikTok's that girl or small waist trends, I wonder why I can't have the same flat toned stomach or the same tiny hourglass waist, despite all the exercising and healthy eating I do. Growing up with social media in this day and age is absolutely detrimental to one's self-esteem and view of their own body. There are hundreds of influencers that are praised for having the perfect body when chances are it's completely edited. It's alarmingly common that males begin to feel consuming, self-destructive pressure to become jacked from a young age. I see my own friends taking creatine, feeling guilty for not getting their daily pump, and force-feeding themselves obscene amounts of protein. Yeah, I totally don't relate to that last one. The bottom line is that we rely on our cell phones nowadays, so a lot of us have easy access to influencers and celebrities who look perfect and don't age. Either they got work done and are hiding it, Or maybe it's the fact that they have access to the best medical care on the planet. But no! Jennifer Aniston just looks really good for her age. Not only that, but these influencers are selling you things that most of us can't even afford to buy. Fitness classes, skincare products, makeup, steroids, although indirectly, with the message being that if you don't buy these things, then you won't look as perfect as these influencers or celebrities. There is a huge market for cosmetic procedures, yes, and we will be getting into that, but also for non-permanent beauty products such as skincare and makeup. According to the latest Lending Tree survey of nearly 1,950 US consumers, Americans spend an average of $1,754 a year on beauty products, cosmetics, and services. Though that figure varies by generation. Gen Z spends more, although 6% of Americans say social media has influenced them to spend more on beauty. The beauty industry, in fact, has evolved to be a $5.5 trillion industry. There is no way to have an industry that is worth that much without companies turning a profit from marketing off of insecurities held by the working class, with these companies only deepening the class divide. Taking care of yourself is one thing, and something that you should definitely be doing, but being expected to have perfect hair, skin, nails, to never age, never gain or lose weight, etc. is nearly impossible to obtain, especially as a working class person. Please take care of your skin, clean it and shit. Some of you men, I'm looking at you, but don't shame yourself because you have acne, for example, or you're a 40-year-old woman who looks like a 40-year-old woman. Easier said than done. I know. While women in the olden days could easily pluck their forehead hairs to achieve the desirable large forehead of the rich maidens, beauty standards are not nearly as accessible anymore, yet we're still expected to follow them, lest we be seen as poor and ugly. Speaking of acne, do you ever see people in traditional media who have acne? Cause I sure as hell don't. The only time I see someone with acne in a movie or a TV show is when they're portrayed as the ugly nerdy kid, which only perpetuates the idea that acne makes one undesirable. Chris Pine recently spoke about how acne cost him a leading role in a CW show when he was younger, which just makes me so sad. I've had acne for the better half of my life, and it is really hard to get rid of. You could take Accutane, I guess, but guess what? That costs money. And you're too poor for that. Acne can also come back for some people after Accutane treatments, leading you to have to go through multiple treatment processes to fully get rid of it. I've just come to accept that I have acne, and if someone is actually judging me for it, I mean, they're really fucking weird in all honesty. One thing that can worsen acne is stress. And who experiences the most stress? The mega rich or the working class? I'll give you a moment to answer, right? Poor people! Obviously, in a graph from Brookings, we can see that stress, worry, physical pain, sadness, and anger all increase an astronomical amount in between those who make $7,500 a month or more and those who make $2,000 a month or less. Chronic stress can lead to aging faster, to physical and psychological medical conditions, to being able to lose weight or gain substantial amounts of muscle, and so much more. So not only do lower income people have less time, money, and resources to fit into these very tight beauty standards, but also more stress in their day-to-day lives, which makes attaining and maintaining these standards unattainable. Even the way you dress greatly affects your attractiveness, and if you can't afford nice clothes, then you're demoted even further in society for the way you look. Again, only furthering a class divide. Not you. You're not the one furthering it. The poor person. The rich people are who I'm talking about, okay? Rich people have better access to everything that can make one more attractive, even to better marital options, since rich people are more likely to marry into another wealthy family, leading to this weird kind of eugenics thing where they only birth pristine children. Mostly, money cannot control everything, and the poor are stuck having kids that they can barely take care of due to their status in society. Now, obviously, skincare and other beauty products can really rack up in spending. I mean, make it rain credit card debt, right? Much like college, but at least skincare has a use. However, I've barely covered plastic surgery, which, objectively, takes a much bigger chunk out of someone's wallet. In 2022, Refinery29 put out an article discussing how Western beauty standards are causing women to rack up credit card debt for Botox specifically. 27-year-old Shelly is in £2,300 worth of credit card debt. She can only afford to pay off between £50 and £90 per month. This article goes on to talk about how some Botox clinics offer a buy now, pay later sort of option, since cosmetic procedures are mostly not covered by someone's insurance. Not many people have that anyways, so no worry there, right guys? Botox and hair removal, for instance, are also not permanent, so they cost more in the long run than a one-time boob job. However, permanent plastic surgery procedures can cost a lot, even your life at times. Many people who want to have the BBL look, let's say, will travel abroad to illegal clinics across the flat earth or in the US itself, like some clinics in Miami, for example, which is a hotspot for this kind of illegal medical practice. The people seeking these surgeries travel to these places in order to get the work that they so desperately want done for cheap. Now, I did a whole video on plastic surgery a couple months ago, but I'm gonna get into a little bit of it again. The global cosmetic surgery market size was valued at $67.3 billion in 2021 and is projected to reach $201 billion by 2031, growing at a CAGR at 11.6% from 2022 to 2031. While plastic surgery similar to skincare can be done on someone's own free will in order to better themselves, or in some cases for serious health complications such as a deviated septum, let's not act like the cosmetic surgery industry mostly exists only to profit on people's insecurities, and that people are greatly influenced by this despite claiming that they got the surgery just for themselves. The ones who have access to the money to pay for these kind of surgeries, not to mention to the best surgeons, are largely rich people, unless you want to take a risk and die from a botched boob job done by Larry in a back alley in Hell's Kitchen. Do you want that to be you? One illegal industry that has been on the rise for the past couple of months is something called veneer techs. Now, veneers are kind of like shells that are meant to be placed over your teeth in order to create a perfect, white, pearly smile. I know, everyone thinks I have veneers. I promise I don't. These are all natural, baby. Just like my ass. There are two common types of veneers, composite and porcelain, with porcelain lasting longer and requiring more enamel to be stripped off of it in order to be applied. In order to properly apply veneers, the enamel needs to be shaved down on your teeth, with a veneer mold being created in order to make veneers that are perfect for your mouth. Many celebs and influencers have gotten veneers done, creating what I consider to be an almost freakishly cartoonish smile that looks almost unnatural. My personal feelings aside, however, veneers are something that need to be meticulously done because it poses a risk like any other surgery does. For example, you need to be cleared of good oral health before getting veneers applied, because if your gums aren't healthy, then you risk infection and your veneers falling out, leaving you with dino teeth. Hey, some people are into that. Veneer techs have been popularized by TikTok, are we surprised, with people straight up filming and posting themselves illegally applying veneers to patients for cheap. These technicians go to a school that's only a few days long for a couple $1,000 in order to get a certification to do veneers. I have a Canva Pro membership too, guys. And here I was sitting thinking that you need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and years of your life in order to become a dentist or an orthodontist. I guess I was wrong. TikTok proves me wrong every day, doesn't it? These veneers are glued to your teeth. You cannot get them off unless they used a shitty glue and then they fall off. Again, leaving you with the example of dino teeth. If your veneers end up looking shitty or heaven forbid are applied completely wrong, you're gonna end up spending more out of pocket to fix the shoddy job that these technicians did on your teeth. It's so sad because a lot of people do get veneers to fix health issues such as tooth decay and just don't have the money to go to a dentist or an orthodontist. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and they end up making the ultimate bad decision to pay for the service because it's way cheaper than actual veneers. Of course, in the land of the free, home of the brave, dental insurance is something that you have to pay separately from health insurance, which is already completely unaffordable. Today, 26 million Americans are still uninsured. Even those who have dental or health insurance may still have to pay outlandish copays that they cannot afford. Obviously, having healthy teeth is something that everyone deserves, and you should take care of your teeth. But just because your teeth look bad aesthetics-wise, it doesn't mean that you need braces or veneers. Or do you? Here's the thing. I don't want to undercut many of the insecurities that people face when it comes to any part of their body, because these standards have been fed to us since we've been suckling on our mother's teat. Although I wish that we could get over these standards, the fact of the matter is that being beautiful gives you more opportunities in life. In the case of teeth, like everything else we've discussed in this video, you're seen as wealthier, healthier, and even more intelligent if you have a perfect set of teeth. In America, at least. I don't want to stereotype some of you Brits, but, well, I know that you know that I know that you know, okay? The bottom line is that a lot of people cannot afford this upkeep for their teeth or beauty in general, and they are punished for it. As a comprehensive academic review summarize, physically attractive individuals are more likely to be interviewed for jobs and hired. They're more likely to advance rapidly in their careers through frequent promotions, and they earn higher wages than unattractive individuals. According to a study done by Daniel Hammermesh and Jeff Biddle, attractive workers earn about 10% more than the average-looking workers, and unattractive workers earn about 9% less than average-looking workers. It's also been found that attractive people who commit crimes are less likely to be convicted, or they'll receive a more lenient sentence. This is commonly known as pretty privilege or attractive bias. Basically, you're more likely to treat someone who is attractive to you better based off of the belief that what is beautiful is good. Now, we know that it makes some sort of sense for people to feel forced to chase these beauty standards in hopes of being treated better by greater society. Brian Johnson, who I did a video on last year, literally spends thousands of dollars a year to reduce his biological age. Although he may not look like a fresh whippersnapper, my point still stands. Kind of. Okay, he's a bit of an extreme example, but you get what I'm saying. Staying young costs money. Staying beautiful costs money. Beauty standards, to be quite frank with you all, is just another way that classism manifests in our society. It's another way to separate the poor from the better equipped, the rich. Take Ozempic, for example. Oh, I just got shivers. Now, I am no doctor, and I've never claimed that I was ever in the history of this channel, so take what I say with a grain of salt. Ozempic is an injectable prescription drug that is used to manage blood sugar levels in patients with type 2 diabetes. It is based on a naturally occurring human hormone called glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1, which plays an important role in regulating appetite and blood sugar levels. People who are obese may be less sensitive to hormones that make them feel full, and by taking Ozempic, it takes longer for your GI tract to empty, leaving you feeling full for longer. Sue DeCoitis, a New York City-based medical weight loss doctor, told Newsweek that the drug's popularity is justified as it's so highly effective. It's not just about losing body fat and getting lean. When insulin is optimized, the drug has multi-system effects. There's less brain fog, less anxiety, stress, and there's just all around great widespread effects. Decreased cardiovascular risk, heart failure. These are the overall positive effects that these medications bring. For a long while now, before Ozempic was being prescribed by doctors for weight loss, by the way, it's still not FDA approved for this, although drugs like Wegovy are, the rich have been getting back alley access to drugs like these in order to lose weight. I want to be clear that I would never shame someone for taking Ozempic. That's really stupid. I just want to discuss how access to this drug can make your life easier, since as we all know, thin equals better in society. Without health insurance coverage, Ozempic can cost up to $1,000 a month to take. Even if you have health insurance, doctors are not quick to prescribe this drug for weight loss unless you meet a lot of specific requirements. You need a BMI, which we all know is not accurate at all, of at least 30 or a BMI of 27, with at least one weight-related health condition. On top of this, patients need to have tried to lose weight through diet and exercise alone and have failed. Celebrities, though, have access to things that we, normal people, don't. So is it any surprise that some of them are getting on this drug and then claiming they lost all this weight due to walking? Studies find that young women who consume media with many images of an unrealistic thin ideal are more likely to exhibit symptoms of a disordered eating. In addition, the Girl Scout Research Institute found that nearly half of girls aged 13 to 17 wish they were as skinny as the models in fashion magazines. Jesus Christ. 1 in 3 women feel pressure to change their appearance because of online images. 2 in 5 girls feel pressure to alter their appearance based on images of influencers they see on social media. 9 in 10 women and girls have been exposed to harmful beauty content on social media. It's no lie that celebrities have a negative impact on a lot of people's body image. Obesity is definitely an issue in the US, and it can have severe negative impacts on your health long term. But why are people obese? I'll tell you what, it's not just because they're lazy or worthless. Lack of education about proper nutrition is a factor, as well as lack of time and obviously money to take basic care of yourself. There will, however, obviously be people who are obese despite these privileges, and in those instances, maybe Ozempic would benefit them. Now that's for them and their doctor to decide, but it's just not that simple. Because so many people have started using Ozempic off-label in order to lose a couple pounds or a few kilos for my non-Americans watching, shortages have been affecting those with type 2 diabetes who rely on this drug. Missing doses can lead to uncontrolled blood sugar for people with type 2 diabetes, and that can snowball into kidney and eye complications, for example. Trulicity and similar diabetes drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro have all been in short supply over the last 18 months. Dr. Scott Isaacs, the president-elect of the American Association of Clinical Endocrinology, says there's an overlap between patients with type 2 diabetes and patients who need GLP-1s for weight loss. I feel like it's obesity discrimination, he says. They would tell patients things like, you don't deserve to be on this, or, this is for patients with diabetes. You're abusing this drug even if the doctor is prescribing it. While a person who has diabetes could have more immediate response to missing a dose of these drugs, Isaac says both groups of patients really do need their medicines. Again, I'm not here to shame the people who have used this drug for weight loss, but we can't deny that celebrities and influencers have greatly spurred the popularity of this drug, and they're mostly the ones who can afford it. At this point in the video, it's not just a beauty problem, it's a health problem. Some celebrities, while still playing a part in these standards due to the fact that they're mega rich, have spoken out against these standards. During the 2017 BeautyCon festival, Zendaya said, "As a black woman, a light-skinned black woman, it's important that I'm using my privilege, my platform to show you how much beauty there is in the African-American community. I'm Hollywood's, I guess you could say, acceptable version of a black girl, and that needs to change." In 2015, Gina Rodriguez told Glamour, "After a photo shoot, I get photoshopped to make me look better, and it doesn't look like me. I remind myself these are their standards, definitely not mine." In 2019, discussing his desire to tell stories that appeal to a wide range of people, John Boyega told Hypebeast, "It's not only race to me, it's aesthetic of people. Why do leads always have to be muscular and ripped? People have often used the Kardashians, as they have done with many other things, as proof of the "you're not ugly, just poor" concept. We can see how different they all look after getting plastic surgery, although they mostly refuse to admit it. Plastic surgery goes a long way. I mean, my BBL certainly has. Liposuction, also commonly known as tummy tucks, have been the most popular form of cosmetic surgery within the past couple of years, with breast augmentation following just behind. BBLs, while not making the top 10, increased by 90% between 2015 and 2019, making it the fastest growing plastic surgery procedure in recent memory. BBLs, while not as dangerous as they once were, still have very high mortality rates compared to other cosmetic surgeries. The recovery for them specifically, as well as other plastic surgeries of course, is extremely painful. When rich people lie about how they got their bodies, they make the peasants claw and crave for their bodies that they will never achieve. Probably. We're taught that if you don't like something about yourself, you should just change it. While this may be true for some people, so many people in the world just don't have the access to the money needed for these procedures, which include not only the actual surgical costs, but also travel and recovery. Add on to this that some people may seek shoddy surgeries from sketchy surgeons. I don't know why I just did all that alliteration when I wrote this, and the risk of death just increases. Rich people don't have to be beautiful though, at least they don't rely on it like poor people do, who fear stigmatization and even discrimination based on their income, which is based on their looks, which is based on their income. It's an endless cycle. Haven't you ever seen an ugly rich person and thought to yourself, why do they dress so hideously? Why are they ugly if they're rich? Don't lie to me. We've all thought about it at least once, right? With wealth comes the expectation of beauty, or at least basic hygiene, right? You wouldn't want to look like one of the peasants. Now would you, Zuck? All of us, whether we want to or not, unconsciously or not, are constantly chasing these beauty standards set by those at the top. Some of us may reach them, but a lot of us normal folk won't. The bottom line is, you're not ugly, just poor. Everyone can buy good looks, but beauty comes from within. At least I think it does. Beauty standards uphold ideas of racism, ableism, anti-LGBTQ sentiment, colonialism, any bad ism you want to put in there, it probably fits. Hey, if the shoe fits, right? However, people are now waking up to the reality that beauty also upholds classist ideals with a defined line drawn in between those who live in the luxury of beauty and those who live in the constant shadow of their watchful Amazon facility bosses. Don't pee on the floor, Jared. I told you to bring a diaper for your next shift, okay? What even is beauty? It's time we all stop looking like carbon copies of one another and start embracing our natural beauty, or our hopefully, our boisterous and beautiful personalities, right? Easier said than done, I know. Diversity is true beauty, in my opinion. Anyway, I have to go set the portion sizes for my dinner tonight. I fucked up the cut last month. I ate way too much peanut butter. Yeah. So, guess I'll see you later.
Oh, Smuckers. You feel so good.
All right, that's it for me, and that's it for this video. How do you think your beauty is affected by your income? How do you think your income affects your beauty? Comment down below anything you want to comment down below. Special thanks to my patrons on the Sigma tier and above. Zelkova Saltz, who is a member of the Alpha tier. Josh Dawes, who is also a member of the Alpha tier. Ben, who is also a very well-valued member of the Alpha tier. And, of course, Cap the Time Lord, who is a member of the exclusive Delta tier. Thank you all so much for your consistent support. If you want to support me, the best way to do that directly is on Patreon. Thanks if you do that, and if not, I'll see you in the next video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like me, you can subscribe. I post comedy and commentary videos, so if that sounds like your thing, make sure to subscribe and turn on notification bell so you know when I post a video. Anyway, I really hope you all enjoyed this video, but more importantly than that, I really hope I see you in the next video. You better be there, watching my next video, okay? If you're not there, the second after it goes up, I'll be really upset, and I'll know. So you're gonna be there, right? Right? Okay, peace.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take